We're going to get started by creating a new blank project called Barksoft. Now, Barksoft is a pretend company that makes copies of popular apps and software experiences, but has those apps be focused entirely on dogs and dog owners. So I'm just going to create a new Dotted project. Dotted is a project-based system that helps us control what context goes into the system and basically allows you to focus Dotted the same way you would focus like an intern or a person who works for you on a specific set of documents or connections to integrations that you want them to have. So you can see that we're going to start out by just uh, bringing in some documents from this pretend company. In this scenario, I'm representing a PM who has just started working at Barksoft, and Barksoft has already shipped another product called BarkBnB. And so what I am trying to do is trying to convince everybody to build a new product called Dugber, where BarkBnB is basically Airbnb for dogs. Dugber is going to be Uber for dogs. So I'm just pulling in some documents right here. These are just regular documents. I think there's a Word document, a couple of Markdown documents, a spreadsheet. I think there's a CSV. We also support PDF and links. You can see that we maintain the format of spreadsheets pretty well. We can support multiple tabs. When you bring in a Word document, we support most of your normal formatting. Your comments come through. In this scenario, I've already had this document that I wrote about Dugber, and it was not taken very well. I got a lot of feedback from some stakeholders. So what I'm doing here is I'm actually using Dotit's detect stakeholder system to figure out who the people are who gave me comments and to create virtual stakeholders for me inside of this Dotted project. Now, virtual stakeholders are basically like digital twins of the people who either work with me in real life or are people who I would like to work with. So in this case, Dotted is creating those stakeholders from pretty sparse information just from the comments in this document. But you can also create a stakeholder from a rich description that you put in or from pulling all of the shared chats that you have between you and that person from whatever your office's chat system is. So if it's Teams or Slack, we support that. Very soon, we're going to have support for GChat as well. So you can see we've created this pretty great stakeholder for designer Alice. Now let's go and take a look at this this BarkBnB one pager. So the idea here is that I got some feedback that actually it's not just the comments on the document, but actually it's the format itself. My boss has told me go and use this other document as an example and just rewrite your document so that it matches this one. And what Dotted can do is it can go and look at a document like this, find all of the headers, find all of the content, find all of the levels of detail and intent behind each of the sections, tables, bullets, etc., and just extract all of that formatting and use any data source to create a new document that matches that formatting. So you can use a document, you can paste in notes from meetings, or you can just speak directly to Dotted using that little microphone and just ramble on and on about an idea that you have, and then use your company's template for a PRD or a software design document or whatever it is that you're trying to do. And Dotted will just take your ideas and take your content and your information and just make it fit perfectly. So one thing that we could do here is we could just use those digital stakeholders that we created for designer Alice and engineer Mike to get feedback directly on that document. But instead, we're going to do this. We're going to take a look at this infosec guidelines. So you can imagine that in a big company, you have lots of these different kinds of guidelines. I had like maybe 10 different ones of these when I worked at a really big company. And I don't often have access to my infosec expert. So in Dotted, what I can do is I can create a infosec expert here. And what this is going to do is it's going to give us a virtual persona, a digital twin essentially, that's going to be dedicated entirely to keeping track of this document for us, so that when we go and actually present this to other people, we don't get called out on saying like, oh, hey, you forgot provision 5.3392-1, because Dotted's going to go and find all those things for us. So this is a pretty interesting operation. It's one of our slower ones. One of the things you might notice is that Dotted is not super duper speedy. That's because it's doing a lot of work on your behalf. And if you watch in the chat, you can actually see the kind of stuff that it's doing. And here, this is what this virtual stakeholder looks like. And you can see right there that the infosec guidelines have been attached to it as the area of expertise for this stakeholder. So let's snap back to that new document we just created. Let's go look at the Dugber one pager. And let's just go and get AI feedback from infosec Ivan, from this pretend person that we just created. And so what's going to happen here is that infosec Ivan is going to go line by line through the Dugber one pager and is going to compare every assertion that is made in this document, the Dugber one pager, to all the assertions that are made in the infosec guidance. And it's going to go and actually put comments directly in the document for any place where I have violated that guidance. You know, it's pretty accurate. But as with anything that you do with AI, we strongly recommend that you double check the work that comes out of Dotted. And this is really a great way to think about working with Dotted. You can think about Dotted as like a person who works for you, maybe an intern, you know, maybe somebody just a little bit less expert than you. But if you had a person who was working for you doing some of this work, you would definitely, you know, trust them to go and give you a draft, but you would probably check what they did before you sent it on to, you know, your boss or something like that. And so the UX of Dotted is actually designed very specifically around feeling just like that. Instead of just getting a new draft on something, you'll get feedback in the form of comments right in the document. And then even you'll see later when we go to get a revision on a document or on a thing from Dotted, you always get the opportunity to see and approve what those changes are, and you can always go backward. Yeah, and so I'm just calling out here that like Dotted is doing a lot of stuff on your behalf. InfoSec Ivan is really going to town on this document, and there's a lot of content inside of that InfoSec guidance. So it's just really having a lot of things to check. It's doing a very detailed job here. We should have results in just a moment. Okay, here we go. So let's take a look at these results. So you can see there's a little bit of context there in chat. We do have a little bit of a bug here. Sometimes Dotted will tell you that the document has had something done to it and it doesn't show up. You just need to hit refresh every once in a while. We're working on that. We'll get it ironed out soon. Okay, so you can see we have 6 comments here. And we can go down here and we can just look at them one by one. We can either see them sort of in this way where they're pop-up document comments, or we can view them in the comment viewer at the bottom. But we can just move right on through this document, and you can see the kind of guidance that we're getting here is like really detailed. The term authorized here is concerningly vague, right? And I highly recommend that you go and try this yourself. But what you'll see is that you can get all these great pieces of feedback. You can also put in comments like I'm doing right here on your own at any point in time to tell Dotted what you wanted to do. So the idea here is that this replaces the sort of like AI way of working where you'd go typey in chat. I want you to do this. I want you to do this. I want you to do this. Instead, you work with Dotted the same way that you would work with, you know, any other person who works for you. You would just put in comments. Hey, this is my note about this. I'd like you to change it, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so we have comments from infosec Ivan and we have some comments from me. We're just going to hit revise. And so what Dotted is going to do right here is it's going to look through at each comment in here, the ones from infosec Ivan and the ones from me, and it's going to treat each one of those just like you would. It's going to treat them as an instruction. It's going to do its best to rewrite this document in ways that correct the comments, if the comments are calling out a need for a change, that correct and address those things directly. And so right here, like this is basically a complete version of the core Dotted loop. You create virtual stakeholders, you iterate on content, you generate content or you bring something in, you request AI feedback. You'll see here in a second, you get to review that feedback, review those changes. And then you just iterate, right? So bring content in, get AI feedback, get a revision, review the revision, iterate again, iterate again, iterate again. And you know, you'll find that you can very quickly get to really high quality results. And it's really easy for you to just say, give me something new, give me something new, try it a little bit differently. Because at every step of the way, we've built a user experience here that makes it easy for you to just go. You saw that we gave you the ability to approve each one of those items line by line, and there's also history. And here's another way you can use your stakeholders. You can actually just come right into chat and talk to them directly. And I find that this is really useful because sometimes rather than starting with a document and then getting feedback on it, I actually want to like have a conversation with an expert or a representative of my customer or a representative of my boss or somebody who I have difficulty thinking about the way that they think. So I create a stakeholder, I have a conversation with them, and then I say, okay, cool. Dotted, go do a thing. Go make a change in a document or go create something for me. And you can do a lot of different things in Dotted, but one of the coolest is that you can actually create clickable HTML prototypes of things directly from documents. And what I'm showing you here is actually going to be like a pretty traditional demo kind of system of what Dugber might look like. But you can actually also use protos for all kinds of things. You can use them to create things that seem like, sort of hyper slide decks, or you can use them to create infographics or interactive data representations. You can even use them to create, funny little things like icebreaker games or stuff like that. But I just want to be clear here. The intent is not for Dotted to be a vibe coding app. The intent is for Dotted to be the tool that enables you to think as quickly as possible and create the assets that you need to go and make your point or persuade other people to get on board with the things that you need them to get on board with. And one of the things that we've noticed is that in 2025, if you show up to to a meeting to go and convince somebody of something and you don't have a visual, you don't have a clickable prototype, you don't have the kind of thing that comes out of Figma, or any of these other tools, you're going to have a really hard time. And it's a big waste to go and have to try and copy all of your context from Dotted into some other tool. So we just put this capability right in here. And one of the neat things you'll see once the prototype comes out is that the prototypes are pretty good. And because they are in your project, they are fungible. They can, interact with the rest of Dotted the same way that you can with documents and stakeholders. You can talk to your stakeholders about prototypes. You can start a conversation with a designer stakeholder and then ask for a prototype to be created, and then ask for a spec to be created, and then ask for work items to be created in Jira or Asana for you on your behalf. You can just sort of start your workflow at any point and go. So here we go. Here's the prototype of Dugber right here, the mobile version. And yeah, I think this is pretty good. And we're not going to show it off here in this demonstration, but you can also share these prototypes directly to folks inside of your organization through just a shareable link like you would a Google document. And you can see here, like, I'm just going to go and have a quick chat with designer Alice about what designer Alice actually just thinks about this prototype. And that's pretty much our demo here for today. There's a lot of other functionality, but that's the core Dotted loop. I hope that this is really helpful and that this helps you get started. If you have any questions, comments, thoughts, concern, don't hesitate to reach out or hit us up on any one of our threads if you're a part of one of our pilot programs. Thanks for watching.